Hello and welcome to the Dragons Are Real podcast. My name is Pete Jones. This is episode 106, and today I'm going to be looking at the Monstrous Menagerie for Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. In part 1, last episode 105, I looked at the player's guide, and this is my dive into the monster manual. So let's get on with it. So the Monstrous Menagerie contains approximately 600 monsters. A lot of them have been adapted from the system's reference documents of the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. And it's written, the lead designer is Paul Hughes. Now, Paul Hughes runs the Blog of Holding, which is at blogofholding.com. And in episode 102, I featured the Blog of Holding in my Monster Mash episode. And basically, Paul analysed all the 5th edition monsters, and he produced a 5th edition monster manual on the business card where you could take the challenge rating and work out the other stats for it. So check out Blog of Holding if you haven't already done so. There are 600 monsters with their variants, and there's also some monster templates and hordes and that sort of stuff. And if you look at the introduction, you can see a list of all the monsters from aboleths to bugbears to belays on to lizard folk. And the list goes on all the way up to yetis and zombies. And lots of the list there, the monsters on there, you will be familiar with from the monster manual from 5th edition D&D. And then there's several appendices. So it starts up explaining what the Monstrous Menagerie is, which is a bestiary for level up advanced 5th edition. And it contains all the classic monsters that you would require. All the monsters have been tuned by Paul and his crew, so there are some slight differences to the SRD monsters. Each of the monster entries includes a description, some legends and lore, sample encounters and treasure, their monster signs, the behaviour, some sample names, some monster-specific random generators, and of course the all-important stat block. There's the challenge and XP, and it also includes legendary monsters, which are your powerful apex creatures, as it calls them, and elite monsters, which are tough and dangerous examples of its species or type. So this is a new addition that they've added where you have the elite monsters. You obviously have the size, the type, and it's the unusual types, aberrations, beasts, celestials, etc. Armor class, hit points, speed, their ability scores, their proficiency bonus, maneuver DC, saving throws, skills, expertise dice, resistance, immunities and vulnerabilities, senses, languages and traits, their actions they will take, limited use action, their attacks, their spells, their targets, their gaze, any ongoing damage, the strategy, how to modify monsters, any variants they may have. They also create some templates to give a wider variety of monsters. Now, I'm not going to go through and list all of the monsters, go through them one by one, but I am going to do some comparisons. And I'm going to pick some monsters that I would normally look at whenever I pick up a monster manual. So the first one is the Goblin. And for those watching on YouTube, I'm going to put the two stat blocks side by side. And we've got to the Goblin from the SRD and the A5E Goblin. So the changes they've made in A5E, they've given it a lower armor class. They've given it a few more hit points. They've also tweaked the stats for them slightly. And things like nimble escape have stayed in there, and then the actions have changed slightly. So in A5E, they're hitting on a +3 instead of a +4, and they're doing slightly less damage. So only slight changes, but they have been tweaked. And of course, the challenge rating remains the same. The next one we'll look at is a skeleton. This one, the armor class is the same. The hit points are the same. Then if we look down at their attributes, there's a slight changes in the attributes where the con has been bumped up slightly. And then as you look down, a lot of the other stats are very similar, if not the same. So not all of them have been changed. The one you will notice on screen of this one is the condition immunities. They now use fatigue, and fatigue has replaced exhaustion in A5E. And then when we get down to the zombies, zombie is another one. They've got less hit points in the A5E version. Undead fortitude remains the same. So there's not a lot of changes, any minor tweaks. So I've got no gripes. One thing I did look at, I thought, since we're looking at zombies, let's have a look at the zombies entry for A5E. So it starts off with the legends and lore, and this means that with an arcana or religion check, that characters can learn more about zombies by doing a check. So they can find out they are mindless husks or formerly living creatures, or even after defeating a zombie, it is best to burn or hack the body to pieces. Then there are some zombie encounters, and it gives the CR rating. So if you're looking at challenge rating 0 to 2, you want 1d4 zombies or ogre zombie. By the time you get up to CR 5 to 10, you're looking at 3 to 5 ogre zombies, 2 ogre zombie flesh heaps, 2 or 3 zombie knights, a zombie knight with 1d8 plus 8 zombies. So it gives you some idea of what to how to scale up your zombie encounters. And this is the same throughout lots of the monsters throughout the manual. There are signs that zombies are around. So, for example, this one, it's distant groaning, footprints left by decaying boots, a rotting smell, or disemboweled corpses. The other thing they've added is the behaviour. So for zombies, it's 6 choices, so you can choose this either by rolling a d6 or as a GM just picking what you want. So it's standing guard, shambling aimlessly, lying motionless on the ground, rise and attack if approached, lying in coffins, graves or burial niches, or attack if one is disturbed, struggling to bash down a door or bend bars, and clawing themselves free from shallow graves. And then we get onto the zombie stats, as we discussed before. Then there is a zombie template, and this says that any beast, dragon, giant, humanoid, or monstrosity can be raised as a zombie. And it goes on to explain how you do that with the ability scores, the saving throws, what speed they are, immunities, etc., etc. It leads you through how to do each of those steps. Then under variants, it's got some more zombie traits. So in place of, or in addition to Undead Fortitude, you can give additional traits such as an infectious bite. There's a vile discharge. So you can see they've put some thought into it. Then next up, we have the ogre zombie. This is a large undead, which is an ogre that's been converted to a zombie, and it's got the full stat blocks for that with all their actions. And then they've got some ogre zombie variants, including an ogre flesh heap. We have a young red dragon zombie. We have a zombie knight. And last of all, we have a zombie horde. This is a large group of medium undead. And it goes on to say how the horde is created. It's composed of 5 or more zombies. And if it is subjected to a spell attack or other effect that affects any one target, it takes any damage but ignores other effects. And it can share its space with other medium or small creatures. And when the horde is reduced to 0 hit points, it turns into 2 or 1d4 dice zombies with 7 hit points each. And as a horde, they have a grab attack and a bite attack. So I do like the way they've added to each of these. And what I recommend is if you do pick this up, have a good flick through. And for example, the dragon entry is huge. It goes on to several pages, and there's some good variants and some ideas in there. So that's the main core of the book, is the 600 monsters. And now we're going to have a look at the appendices. So the first appendix is beasts and creatures. And this is your more mundane creatures. So it's things like apes, baboons, ponies, that sort of thing, badgers. Your bears are in there, all the way down to your wolves and your wargs. So it's nice to have that section there as an appendix, so that your run-of-the-mill stuff you can find quite easily. Appendix B is then a list of non-player characters, and it gives you some information about how these NPCs are created. And then we start off from an ascetic grandmaster, and it goes on through alchemist, acolyte, and all the other good NPCs that you may need in a game. It's even got a thing called squad templates. So you can treat a group of 5 to 10 identical NPCs or other monsters as a single creature by applying the squad template to the base creature stat block. And this allows high-level characters to battle large numbers of enemies without bogging down the game in dozens of die rolls. And it goes on to tell you how you do that, how to work up the challenge rating, and you can do this for any NPC or group of monsters. So that's quite a nice little addition there. And we continue on then through all the various things we have, like cutthroats, bandits, and so on. Adds commoners, commoner mobs, etc., etc., all the way down to warrior bands, so plenty of there to get your teeth into. Appendix C is designing monsters. Now this is a cracking little section. These are guidelines how to create an original monster, and I think that there's something similar in the back of the DMG if I'm not mistaken, but here they put it in the monster manual, which is a good place to put it. So first of all, you build up the monster story. Step 2, you determine the challenge rating. So for a single monster against the entire party, the challenge rating is the total character level divided by 3, or for one monster per character, the challenge rating is the average character level divided by 3 rounded up. And throughout this procedure, it gives you a example step by step. So they built a Firebird. So as it discusses each of these steps, it shows you how you would apply it practically, which I think is really good. Step 3 is you customize the capabilities. So you grant it languages, senses, skills, saving throw proficiencies, movement forms, and traits you think it should possess. Step 4 is to customize the combat statistics. So you look at the statistics for monsters by challenge rating table on the following page, and you assess its armor class, its hit points, ability bonus, and attack bonus. So for example, a CR1 creature would have an AC of 13, 30 hit points, plus 2 proficiency bonus, plus 2 ability bonus, 1 attack, would cause 10 damage per round. Its easy DC would be 12, its hard DC would also be 12, and it would give 200 XP. And this table runs from challenge rating 0 all the way down to CR30, so you can create monsters of all challenge ratings. It goes on then on the next page to how you calculate the attacks, how much damage per round you cause, any conditional damage it might cause, any special attacks it might make, and it leads you through with the examples continuing, how to inflict conditions, difficulty class, how to calculate them. And right at the end of the appendix is the completed Firebird that they give as the example to show how it all looks once it's been completed. So that's a very welcome section, and I think it would be great for any GM who wants some tips on how to create monsters. On to Appendix D, which is designing combat encounters. So they are split into 2 types, challenge-based encounters and story-based encounters. And it goes on to explain the difference between the two, how to set the combat encounter difficulty, so how you do an easy matchup, a medium matchup, a hard matchup, and a deadly matchup, and it gives you bullet points of what the CRs are and what sort of things you can do to get each of these challenge types. Then we go on to low-level adventures and low-level CR monsters. Then we look at party optimization, and then it looks at the encounter's maximum monster CR and how to calculate that, and some example combat challenges. So it's very good at leading you all through this. It has a table, has the encounter challenge rating for different party sizes. So it looks at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 adventurers. The character levels, it divides each of these into easy, medium, hard, and deadly, and gives you some idea of how to work it all out. So again, really great stuff. Then it goes on to about how to use elite monsters and using legendary monsters. Then it looks at the adventuring day, and as a rule for thumb, you work out how many encounters you should have depending on the levels of your characters. And the same as 5th edition does it, there are 4 tiers of characters. So they're saying for tier 1 you should have 2 encounter points, tier 2 4 encounter points, tier 3 6 encounter points, and tier 4 has 8 encounter points. Then it goes on to some combat encounter types, whether that be a solo fight, boss and minions, commander and troops, team versus team, a horde. So it gives you some really good ideas of different combat types to have. Some complications you can add to the combat, alternate goals, ranged attackers, shifting alliances, sort of terrains and hazards, and waves of reinforcements. It also talks about failure in combat counters, elite monsters, and failure too. So in all, some great ideas in there. Then we go on to Appendix E, which is the conditions. And these are all the conditions from 5th edition and the new conditions that they've added. So you've got the ones that already exist in the SRD, like blinded, charmed, and confused, but it adds several new ones. So for example, bloodied. So a bloodied creature is when it's reduced to half its hit points or less. This is because some of the abilities or feats mentions the word bloodied. Then we get on to confused. So a confused creature can't take reactions. And the new one is doomed. A doomed creature dies at a time determined by the narrator or within 13 hours. We have rattled, slowed, and slowed. So rattled is a rattled creature cannot benefit from expertise dice. A slowed creature's speed is halved. It takes a -2 penalty to AC. So exhaustion is replaced by two conditions, fatigue and strife. Fatigue is your physical exhaustion, while strife is your mental exhaustion. So fatigue is 7 levels. At level 1 you cannot sprint. Level 2 you have disadvantage on strength, dexterity and constitution checks. Level 3 your speed is halved and unable to maintain a fast travel pace. Level 4 your disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws using strength, dex or con. Level 5 your hit dice are halved. Level 6 your speed is reduced to 5 foot and unable to maintain a slow travel pace, and level 7 is doomed. On strife you have 7 levels. At level 1 you have disadvantage on intelligence, wisdom and charisma checks. So when you have fatigue it's your 3 physical attributes, and on strife it's your 3 mental attributes. Level 2 is disadvantage on concentration checks. Level 3 you can only take a bonus action or action each turn, not both. Level 4 is disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws using int, wisdom and charisma. Level 5 you suffer the effects of a randomly determined short-term mental stress effect. Level 6 you cannot cast spells, but you can still cast cantrips. And level 7 you suffer the effects of a randomly determined long-term mental stress effect. On the next few pages it goes on to discuss mental stress effects. So your short-term are things like bewildered, flippant, enraged. And then you get to long term, it's covetous, hopeless, memory wipe, or murderous. And then there's some mention then of saving throws, spell effects, and how to relieve mental stress effects. Appendix F is all these stat blocks by challenge rating. So if you want a challenge 1/4 monster, it gives you a list of all the challenge 1/4 monsters and the page numbers for quick reference. So a great way to find the monsters. And then it has the elite monsters done separately, which range from challenge 2 up to challenge 30. Appendix G is the stat blocks, but this time instead of by challenge rating they are by name with a page reference number. So it's a nice easy index on 2 different ways. And then we get to Appendix H, which is the compatibility, and this is the compatibility of Level Up A5E, or A5E as it calls itself, and 5th edition, which it goes O5E, or Open 5th edition, which is the SRD. And it discusses what OSC name corresponds to the A5E name. So for example, exhaustion is fatigue, game master is the narrator in the A5E. Half-orc health is now called mixed heritage, and gives you a list then of all the classes and such like. It tells you about how to calculate maneuver, DC, supply and magics, and it says what is incompatible. So while the characters can be used alongside each other and are fully compatible, their building blocks are slightly different in each game because A5E was designed from the ground up. This means A5E's heritage, cultures and backgrounds are not individually directly compatible with O5E's races and backgrounds, but you can use them in both games. So that is the Monster Manual. Now I would say if you haven't got the Monster Manual from 5th edition, then do pick this up. Or if you get this at a good price, it's certainly with some great ideas in it. I picked the whole bundle up together for the whole game. But I think there is enough in here. Okay, some of the monsters are the same as you'll get in the 5th edition SRD, but they've all been tweaked, and I think there are some other great ideas in here. So really do check that one out. And then in the next episode, we're going to have a look at the GM's Guide. So I hope you enjoyed that walkthrough. Don't forget, you can always find me via the website at petejones.newcities.org, via the blog. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook under the Dragons Are Real Nomica, so check it out, or you can send an email to the Dragons Are Real podcast at pm.me. So that's all for this episode, and I'll catch you all on the flip side.